And Rumble failed to start. What's the matter with Rumble? Okay, Odyssey is going. It looks like YouTube is going. Come on, Rumble.
Oh, Tia Gopher was going to join, but he's sick.
Oh, is he? I saw him online.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
He's got a sore throat. Everyone's getting sick.
I'm kind of getting something. Fun with Facts suggested today, but I don't see him online.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to... This whole thing got messed up. I don't know if it's because OBS updated to version 32 or what, but man, I had to reset up everything. I had to reset up all the chats. That's why I'm not on camera right now, because I was finally going to get on camera again, but the camera is just like panning around, zooming around everywhere. It's moving around, and I can't figure out why it's doing it or how to make it stop that. And it was either fix the chats or fix the camera. So I chose to fix the chats. So at least we should be able to have them online if anyone is in, and I don't see anyone chatting as of yet. Unless that's just not working and I need to reload. Hang on a second. And it gets on the top chat when I do that instead of live chat. All right.
But yeah, poor Tia Gopher, he's sick. Bob Rivers was wrong. The third thing at Christmas that's such a pain isn't hangovers, it's viruses.
Well, it says I am going on YouTube. I am definitely streaming on Odyssey. I am definitely not streaming on Rumble. I'm going to make one more shot at getting Rumble going. And if that doesn't work, I guess I'll just have to start. Oh, I think that's going. Okay. I think we're finally going in. Oh, that was an adventure.
Now getting Rumble to work?
Yeah. Yeah, you tagged Fun with Facts, but I don't see him online, so I don't know if the tag's
I tagged him just in case if he forgot, but you know, well.
Yeah, but if he's not online, he won't see it. Yeah, I know what it's like to have your voice fried, though, so don't worry about it, Tia.
Yeah. Like I said, everyone's getting sick. That's the real third pain of Christmas. It's not hangovers, it's viruses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so before we went on, we were talking about Ben-Hur, and you were going to say there was an M&M's commercial that parodied Ben-Hur?
Yeah, it was parodying the rowing scene where the red M&M and the yellow M&M, they're rowers and all that, and the slave masters are going around whipping them, going row, 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 and suddenly they start going row, row, row your boat.
Yeah.
Yep, and then they get the entire crew to start singing row, row, row your boat. Then the commander whips them and demands to know, I would like to know. And they go, do you have the motion to rock the boat, baby? Remember that song?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
I remember rock the boat, and the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat.
Yeah.
That's from Guys and Dolls. Nicely, nicely.
Yeah. I like those old M&M's commercials. It's hard to believe they still air that that iconic M&M's Christmas commercial every year. I remember seeing that since I was a kid. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
Which one?
You know, where they're walking in there, the yellow M&M has a bowl of M&Ms. He's like, "So, do you think Santa will like these red and green M&Ms?" And the red M&M goes, "I don't know. I never met the guy." And then as they walk in, they see Santa deliver presents, and they shock each other. And the red M&M goes, "Ah, he does exist!" And then Santa goes, "Oh, they do exist!" And then they both faint.
I think I did
Yeah.
see that
And,
one.
yep. Uh, Santa?
Oh yeah, we got Zen in the comments over here.
It's speaking of
It
Santa, I
was
saw
talking about
this one
Lewis
funny.
Rossman's phone company, but someone posted into the Discord a video where someone looked at that, and apparently it's not as private as he's making it out to be. You're actually a little better off going and just getting a burner phone.
More tech stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I know. My mom's always calling me because she's like, "How come you don't know how to do this? You're on your computer all the time." It's like, yeah, I'm mostly watching videos or doing junk. I'm not typing and hacking into stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I might have a slight bit of anxiety tonight because they finally staffed back up with doctors at my pain clinic. And so my first appointment tomorrow's with a doctor, and of course I've never been to see him before, and I never know how that's gonna go. Is he gonna be great? Is he gonna be terrible?
Mm. Or is it gonna be one, or is it gonna be one of those doctors where even though you have a doctor note that explains you're in permanent chronic pain and need medicine, they go, "Oh, great, one of those guys."
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
Yep.
He's an osteopath. They're usually better about it. They're better about treating you as an individual and not a statistic. And they're not like the pseudoscience that he used to be.
Mm.
I mean, if the guy starts going on about alignment and manipulation, I'm out of there. But other than that,
Mm. There's a lot of YouTube skeptics, that like to hate on chiropractic, but from what I understand, the funny irony is that although it does have some scammy origins, there actually is some valid science behind it. Obviously it can't cure anything, it can't cure everything like the original guys did, but it is good for like certain types of back pain, if I recall correctly.
well, the idea is you would go, and it's just certain types and just certain forms of manipulation, but you can go get that and be loosened up, and then an hour later go in for physical therapy, and you'd be a lot looser for your physical therapy, and then your PT would be a lot more effective.
Yep.
We talked about that with me, only in my case, just from the nature of my wounds and everything, we decided to go with massage instead of chiropractic. But it was the same idea because massage is just a short term benefit that makes you feel good and makes you relax and loose, like
Yeah.
chiropractic. There's no long term benefit to either one, but you make that appointment, an hour or two before your physical therapy, and it's a lot better.
Yeah. Massage, huh? Did you get a hot pretty Asian lady or the hunky or the big hunky guy?
No, it's therapeutic massage. It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
And physical therapy itself is kind of like halfway between massage and, one of those guys at the gym that supervises your workout.
Yeah.
Because they do the hands-on, stretching and everything
Yeah.
too.
I mean, their job is basically it's to get you like if you're having some sort of muscle issue, it's to make sure that muscle doesn't atrophy and all that.
And to make sure you can, reach as much of a range of motion as you can
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
figure
so
out
you're
how to
not
help you
stuck.
get there.
So you're not stuck in a wheelchair. Hmm.
Yeah, like if you have a knee replacement, knee replacements and hip replacements, they can be just world changing. They can make your life so much better, but because of everything the surgery does and because of everything they have to cut through to do it, you really need that physical therapy to build your muscles and stretch your ligaments and everything and get them working back the way they're supposed to so that the new hip or the new knee can do its job.
Yep. My mom had to get one of those. I'm dreading the day when that happens to me.
Yeah, my mother had to have it too, but I mean, man, they say that after you're done with it,
Yeah.
it is just
I have heard.
it's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
clouds part.
I mean, yeah. A lot of people do say that. Once you fully recover and you get used to it. Like after like half a year or so, it's so much better. But they do say, yeah, the first 6 months, you are gonna be in absolute misery because like you said, it's major surgery and they have to cut through a lot of muscle, nerves, and sinew to get to your knee. So
Yeah. But see, I went through a lot of that anyway, just because of the nature of the injuries and what they were trying to put together on me. I didn't have a new knee, but it was a lot of the same. They had to cut the patellar tendon and things like that. And then all the stuff that was done to my hip, that's
yeah.
left me with they tried through arthroscopic surgery as much as they could to clean out the arthritis, but of course that could only do so much, and that was 19 years ago. So yeah, I've got arthritis in that hip. That knee is weak and can't really support me. And
Yeah, like did she? I think you mentioned that one time too. Like, isn't like your spine all busted up too, or?
the spine wasn't broken or anything. It was pretty much the right side, the arm and the leg.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of people do say the human body is a mystery because sometimes it appears to be fragile and weak, but other times it appears to be indestructible. Because you hear stories of people getting seriously injured by a minor fall down the stairs, but then you hear stories about people who broke their neck and didn't even realize it and carried on with their life for like 20 years.
Oh, that was Buster Keaton.
Yeah.
That scene in what was it? Was it The General? It might not have been The General, but it's one with a train, and there's a scene where he's getting off the train and he grabs at the water tower. They have it where you put down and you can refill the water car. He pulls it down and the water just deluges down on him and he falls on the rail. He didn't realize it at the time, but he broke his neck during that shot. And like 10 years later, he had to have an x-ray for a completely unrelated reason. And his doctor was like, "When did you break your neck?" It's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "You broke your neck. It was a while ago. It's healed up fine." And he thought back, and that was about the only case. After that, yeah, I did kind of have a sore neck.
Yep. I mean, the thing with backs and the thing with breaking your back and your neck is that contrary to what some movies portray, if you break your neck, it's not necessarily an end deal. It's not good, but as long as your spinal cord is intact, if it's just the bones that are broken, that's actually very repairable.
Yeah. They just want to
Yeah.
immobilize it, which is why you're in that scary looking,
Yep.
torture device.
Yep. Yep. You gotta wear the infamous back brace. Hmm.
Yeah, all that stuff can look scarier than it is.
Yep. Or if you're really on.
You cut out.
Let's see. Sorry, I just stuttered. A cheeky politician mate said, "Which doctor is better?" Funny irony. I had a dream about Doctor Who last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a dream. I had a dream that I was a British police officer and I was investigating a human trafficking ring, and the madam in charge of the base, she was actually an alien trying to kidnap, human females to sell them on the intergalactic black market, and the doctor showed up and helped me defeat her. I know it's weird, but it's a dream.
Best Doctor is 4.
Oh yeah, wasn't that the guy who he would randomly walk up to characters whether they were villains or not and just go jelly baby?
Oh yeah, a lot of that was ad-libbed.
Yep. And I remember seeing a documentary about Doctor Who one time, and they interviewed the actor who played the Fourth Doctor, and the reason why he acted like that and why he ad-libbed a lot is because when he was reading for his part as they were getting ready, he realized, the Doctor is technically an alien, right? Well, yeah, he's an alien. Well, how come he doesn't act like one?
Yeah, he was the first one who really gave the Doctor that alien, weird, mysterious kind of, because it's like an alien isn't going to react to things like we do.
Yeah. Because, the first couple Doctors were good. The first 3 Doctors were good, but they portrayed the Doctor as if he was like a super duper smart human, But the Fourth Doctor, brought the fact that, he's.
Well, he wasn't even officially an alien until Patrick Troughton's last episode. Before then, it was just mysterious. And you didn't know if he was a human from the future or from a, greater human society or whatever. 2's last story was when they finally established that he's from another planet. He's from a race called the Time Lords and all that.
Man, in the first Doctor, he could be a grumpy old man.
Oh yeah, he'd get pretty gruff at times.
Yeah.
And then he'd turn around and be like your favorite grandfather.
Yeah.
The best Doctors have always had that duality to them. Because Heather and I are watching it again. We just finished with Peter Davison, and everyone thinks of him as being kind of gentle and sweet. And you look at the things he was doing, he was one of the roughest Doctors. He'd be one of the first ones just to say enough of this and grab a gun. 10 and 11 writing feels different. Well, that was the changeover from Russell T Davies to Stephen Moffat. 11 was when Stephen Moffat started being showrunner. But I will say that after all this time, it's probably best for kind of like that era to come to a close and hand it over to someone else, because, Moffat was one of the writers under Russell T Davies, and so was Chris Chibnall. So all of the showrunners have been from basically that same crowd. So probably time for some new blood to get in, I would think. JMS, Joe Straczynski, the guy who did Babylon 5, he has British citizenship now. And he's talked about, like, the possibility that, he would want to do it if they would offer it to him. He would be good.
It's one series I'm surprised they never. It's one series that I'm surprised they never made into a TV show or whatnot. Or actually, they did on Sci-Fi, but it didn't really get popular. You ever heard of the Dresden Files?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know my ex got me into the Dresden Files. I'm reading the first book right now. It's actually pretty good so far.
I really want someone to do a good job with Catch-22. Because the movie they made in the 70s was good, but of course it's a movie, it's very limited. And so when they did the series with George Clooney, it started out really good, but but it was good as long as they followed the book. And then all of a sudden they took a left turn and started doing their own thing with it, which is fine, except it just wasn't good after that.
Speaking of failed adaptations, did you see that cringy Animal Farm trailer?
Yeah, but you can't tell much from a trailer.
True, but
If you were going to judge the Iron Giant from a trailer, you know, the when I saw that trailer, I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be a dumb movie, and it's not. It's really good.
well, the issue that a lot of people have is that, and it's rightfully so, is that many people are failing to realize they completely missed the whole point because basically, because
Well,
remember,
the
the
only
original
thing
book
you
was
see is you see the part where the animals have taken over the farm, and it's like, yay, we're making it work, and then I mean, I don't know who the human character is supposed to be. I don't know because in the book, the guy whose farm it was originally, he just becomes a drunkard and doesn't care, and it's someone else who tries to come in and take over the farm, and then ends up working that deal with Napoleon, or was
that's
it
one thing that
Napoleon or Snowball who
I don't
worked
know
out
who
the
it
deal
was.
with the humans?
Napoleon.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, as far as that's concerned, you have that in the book. So it may have been they just showed that part in the trailer and then didn't show the rest, show the animal farm failing and showing the pigs become human and things like that.
Well, no, I think the guy who's going to direct it and some of the actors they flat out said that they're gonna that this Animal Farm it's going to be a critique of modern day capitalism, and I'm like, did you guys not read the original Animal Farm?
Yeah.
It was a critique of communism. Speaking of which, that's actually another thing a lot of adaptations of Animal Farm get wrong is that they always portrayed the windmill as being destroyed by the original owner, whereas in the original story it fell apart because the animals didn't know what they were doing. And that's another thing a lot of the movies like to do is they always portray it as animalism could have worked if Snowball hadn't been kicked out and Napoleon been overthrown, when the fact of the matter is, if you really read about it, Snowball wouldn't have done any better because he was acting
But
like
you
a
have,
hypocrite
but
before.
it was that other pig. What was the pig's name who first thought up of the windmill?
It was Snowball.
No. Snowball didn't Snowball take it from someone else they kicked out?
No, it was Snowball right from the get go. Old Major, if you're thinking about Old Major, he proposed the concept of animalism, but he died before the windmill was
Right.
even made. Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway,
Basically,
yeah, he had designed the windmill and they kicked him out. And then when Napoleon tried to have them build the windmill, they didn't know how to do it.
another thing too that a lot of the films kind of get wrong is that they portray as animalism could have worked if Snowball had stayed in and that it had the right animals been in charge. When the fact of the matter is, it is heavily implied that it's a failed ideology and it's dead on arrival.
We'll just have to see how it turns out.
I do know though, because I am seeing this. There's actually a lot of them. There's actually been a resurgence of a lot of middle-aged, elderly ex-Soviet citizens coming out and posting videos of what life was like under the Soviet Union. Part of me is wondering if it's because we're seeing all these people saying, "Oh yeah, capitalism's bad. We should return to Marxism," and these people are coming out and saying, "Hey, listen, I was a little boy who grew up in the Soviet Union, and guess what? It sucked ass."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've always had Ushanka show. He's been around a while.
Hmm.
I'm
there was
trying to
also
think because I'm
papers.
still thinking the point of the windmill was the I don't know. I'm looking it up. Okay, yeah. Snowball announces his chance to modernize the farm by building a windmill. Napoleon disputes it and has his dogs chase Snowball away. But then he did turn around and just basically pretend that the windmill was his idea all along.
Yep, because and they said and when they asked why would you do that, he said it's tactics, it's political tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, that was the
Yep.
the guy who had the farm before.
Yep.
I mean, the animation they did in the 40s was pretty good, and it was done by Orwell himself.
Yep.
So even where it did deviate from the book, it was at least still Orwell making his point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Orwell was a very complicated person, because like I've seen some YouTubers say it's like, why are libertarians quoting Orwell? Orwell was a socialist. It's like he kind of was, but
He started out that way, and then he gradually realized that socialism wasn't the right idea.
Yeah.
And by the time he wrote Animal Farm in 1984, he was pretty much dead set against it.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, had he lived long enough to see the death of Stalin and the fall of the Khrushchev era, he probably would have been flat out said, yeah, screw that, socialism doesn't work, because even towards the end of his life, when he was a socialist, it was really, he wasn't like a diehard socialist like what we would think now. He was more like a modern day Labor Party member, where he still believed, that we should have capitalism and markets, but there should be a government, social safety network and all that for the workers. By the way, I saw one person try to say that the NHS was proposed by an actual British doctor, and I looked it up. Nope, it was It was proposed by, you guessed it, a labor member.
Yeah, Zen had put something like that. Let me get back to Zen's comments. He just posted something about that. I'm trying to keep up with 3 things here, so
That's fine.
Oh, excellent point on labor unions being mafia protection rackets. Their supporters refuse to acknowledge that, and for that matter, how they end up hurting workers and the poor. Hell, union membership has been falling since the 50s, and not without good reason. The whole thing is a grift at this point. Ditto for occupational licensing and the rest of the holy government.
Oh yeah, there was a YouTube comedian called Steve IOE who he used to work in the medical field, and he once did a video on nurses and all that, and this was based on his personal views, and he says, listen, we are experiencing a massive shortage. Sure, so here's what we propose to do. And you know what one of his demands was? Make it so only unionized nurses and doctors could get jobs. And I'm like, that's going to make the nurse situation even worse.
Yeah. But I mean, North Carolina is a right to work state. So we don't have that problem, but we do have the occupational licensing thing. Because my daughter's salon, she's just made it a nail salon because it is so expensive to get a salon space where you can do hair. But the state won't allow them to do mobile salons. And there's a bunch of them that have gotten together trying to lobby the state to change that. And she was like, as soon as I can either, go to someone's home and do hair or set up a mobile salon where I can just drive it around and do it, I'm doing that. But
I remember
hair was her main thing, and she can't do that because just of trying to get you have to have like a special, licensed area set up for it that has to be. So basically the only way you're going to do that is if you rent the space for it that someone else has set up, but then you're paying so much in rent you can't make any money.
Yep, you got to get like some kind of cosmetician license, and so you got to go to college.
She has her cosmetology license.
Yeah,
that's not the issue.
It's still kind of stupid though. It's like you have to go to college for like several years just to Like, that's one thing I also don't like
North
about
Carolina's not bad on that part. You just have to go to college for 2 years, which she did. So she's got the
oh,
license. It's the salon space. All of the
that's a,
requirements
I
about
will.
just to put in a chair for someone to sit down and cut your hair. All the
Yeah.
requirements for doing that are crazy.
I will say that's my biggest issue with college, even community colleges, is like why does it have to be more than a year? Because there are some jobs out there where really I don't think it would require 2 years of training. Hell, I don't even think it would require a year's worth. But
Well, it depends on what it is, though. I mean, you want to be a machinist, you probably do want 2 years for all of the different machines you got to learn and all of the different techniques and everything. That probably would take you 2 years.
yeah. Although to be fair, I think another issue too is that even a lot of technical schools are guilty of this. Is that they still require you to take like elective courses and all that don't have a whole lot to do with what you're interested in, and it's like, why do I gotta learn algebra if I'm trying to learn something that's not going to really require algebra? And besides, I already learned algebra in high school. Why do I need to take it again?
The trade schools are better about that.
Yeah.
And they were also better about, the hands on stuff.
Yep. Yeah, that's another thing too. I hate about modern day society though is the whole college thing is that there is a stigma against people that either didn't go to college or dropped out like I did and all that, and like it's one thing that shocks a lot of people. Historically speaking, colleges were only for people who wanted to go into law or the church. Like even doctors didn't go to college for up until very recent history. Yeah, I know, and people are like, but then how did they practice medicine? How did they learn and all that? It's like simple. If they showed an interest in being a doctor, they would go to their local doctor or pharmacist and say, "Hey, I want to be this," and they take them under their wing.
Yeah, they become apprentices and learn that way.
Yep.
And they'd still do the book
And
learning. They just do it as an apprentice.
yep. Yeah, I mean, that's what they did. They would either, become an apprentice or, and I'm pretty sure you mentioned this before, some doctors would form guilds or coalitions together, and if anyone was interested in doctor, you would go to them and they'd say, "Okay, you can work with this guy. He'll apprentice you." Like the idea that you have to go to college in order to have a successful life, that wasn't invented until like the late 19th, the mid 19th century, and I think that had to do more with the Industrial Revolution.
Even then, a lot of the academic stuff wasn't even until the 20th.
Yep. I mean, granted, I don't know for certain. People, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it really wouldn't surprise me if the reason why it happened was because as the middle class people got more money, they decided to start sending their children to universities and all that, and the elite classes, and especially in Europe, weren't happy because having a college degree was like an elite status. Like you had to come from a wealthy family to go. They started saying, okay, well, we're going to tack on all these stupid, stuff and mandatory. So even if you do go to college, you're not going to benefit much from it. Yeah, and earlier someone mentioned labor laws. I think I showed it to you in the fail quotes. I kind of hate those stupid videos, where people are like American labor laws, are obsolete and draconian compared to European labor laws. But many people fail to realize culture plays a very big role in workplace relationships.
Yeah.
Like if I recall correctly, the reason why Europeans, get like 5 weeks vacation and mandatory holidays off isn't necessarily because of labor laws, but it's literally because Europeans, they like their vacations. Remember, in some European countries, it was actually customary long before the Industrial Revolution to literally take 2-hour breaks because they like their free time.
Back to Animal
Because here's
Farm,
something.
looking over it, I think I was getting confused with Squealer because after they kicked out Snowball, it was Squealer the one. Squealer was the one who convinced everyone that the windmill was Napoleon's idea, and that Snowball
Well,
was
yeah, Squealer
secretly
was
working with Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but yeah, Squealer was basically Napoleon's stooge, basically.
Yeah. Him and the dogs.
Yeah. Yep. I will say though, it's one, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a live action version of Animal Farm, and there was one scene that did have me laughing out loud, though. It was when the pigs first discover whiskey, and they get super duper drunk and hungover, and Squealer's out there with a hangover trying to change the law and all that, and one of the dogs who just encountered Napoleon, who's having a bad hangover, he goes, Squealer, Comrade Napoleon is dying, and Squealer goes, I'm dying too.
Oh, I saw this earlier. Bridget Bardot died. 91.
You know what's one thing though about the rules of animalism that I'm wondering? What would happen if the animals tried to expand their ideology to a zoo and they encountered gorillas and apes? Because they say no one's allowed to have, you're not allowed to have arms, but apes have arms, and they use their arms to gather tools too.
Yeah, it was 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And then
Yep.
the chickens had to wonder about that.
Yeah,
and they
when
were like,
some
wings
animals-
count as legs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're like, oh well, you see, your wings don't count because they're a means of propulsion.
Yeah, they're a kind of leg.
Even though, granted, while it doesn't apply to chickens, some birds do use their feet to manipulate stuff and use tools. But to be fair, that was kind of the whole point, because the whole point of the original book was to show that, Farmer Jones was not a good person, but the solution wasn't to declare humanity as evil and all that. Like, that line old Major had, where he's like, mankind doesn't lay eggs. I so want to jump into the book. It's like, yeah, mankind doesn't lay eggs because we're mammals.
Yeah, pigs don't lay eggs either.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, but again, that's kind of the whole point, and that's something that a lot of movies tend to miss the point of. Is that in real life, in the books, it was really more of the problem was that Farmer Jones, was just a bad farmer, but the animals and the pigs blame it on humans, whereas a lot of the films tried to portray it as, oh, it was jealousy. Because to be fair, because going back to its allegory, yeah, there were some genuine issues, with the Russian Empire, and it's understandable why the Tsar was removed. Because let's be real here, he was a terrible leader. The problem was the solution. The Bolsheviks said, yeah, that's why we got to collectivize everything and get rid of it. When it's like, no, you just got to get rid of the old outdated feudal laws.
See, I don't get when you're trying to scroll through headlines looking for things to talk about. There's all sorts of sports things, and it's like, okay, first of all, shouldn't sports be their own category? Second, shouldn't this is like modern technology, shouldn't there be a way to filter that out? Because I know there's stuff that's been
Speaking of
going
things,
on.
did you speaking of technology and all that, did you hear about the video game awards? That one video game, Expedition 33 or whatever, it got its thing revoked because it was discovered that in its early planning phase they used generative AI to come up with concept art, although they didn't end up using it, but it
Yeah.
didn't matter because no AI allowed.
Yeah, it apparently
one
makes
way
the
to-
whole thing rotten if you use AI at any point.
Yeah. You know what this actually reminds me of, and apparently this did actually happen. It reminds me of when CGI first came out. Like when Tron
Absolutely.
first started yeah. Yes. Now, Tron wasn't the first CGI film. There were a few others before that, but it was one of the first to really utilize it. When it first came out, everyone nominated for special effects, and like literally everyone and their mother was voted for Tron. It got overwhelming reviews, and what did the award academy say? Oh well, it doesn't count because it's not hand drawn. It's all done on computers.
A lot of it was hand drawn.
Yep.
But they said the same thing when, you had Babylon 5 out. And of course, it was competing directly with Star Trek.
Yep.
But because it was CGI, it could do completely different kinds of things. It could do completely different kinds of space battles where you have, 30 Star Furies in view, which you couldn't really do, on a TV budget with models, because you would either have to make a lot of models, which will be expensive, or you'd have to photograph the same model a bunch of times and composite it, which is also expensive. Whereas with CGI, you just keep making copies. But, man, there was just so much people were talking about, how the CGI looked fake and stuff like that. When if anything, the CGI looked more realistic to how space would look, because in space, you're focusing out to infinity because of the scale you're on. So everything's going to be in focus. There's not going to be any air, to attenuate anything or to act as a bloom for the lights or anything. And all of the reasons they said it looked fake is how space would actually look. Which is also, by the way, why a lot of the flat earthers say that the shots of the ISS are fake, because, it's clearly fake, because nope, that's how space looks.
Yep. Yeah, and also, it's another way. It's another way to trigger the anti-AI people is when you point out, because I looked it up and this actually is true. Literally everything they said about AI was literally the exact same thing was said about photography when it first became a thing.
Yep, and so many other things too. Basically, anytime there's a new innovation.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, it's just one of those things where, and I actually explained this to people. It's like, listen, every time a new revolutionary type of technology comes out, look, they always act like it's going to be the end of the world or it's going to destroy us. No. If you look at the history of technology, when a new radical invention comes out, one of two things are going to happen. One, it fades into obscurity and just becomes like a niche curiosity that happened, or B, it just becomes the new normal.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
3D ended up not 3D as in CGI, but 3D as in, you go to the movies and you wear the glasses and you see it in 3D. That kind of fell out of the wayside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're looking around at a lot of the arguments and tactics and things like that the anti-AI crowd use, it's straight out of the creationist playbook.
Yep. I once saw one funny comedian one time say that creatures like the platypus, disprove evolution completely because he says, like, look at the platypus. You look at that thing and say, what sort of intelligent creator would create that thing? Did you hear me, Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have the hatred of CGI today.
Oh yeah.
And you've even got like Hollywood
wrong.
and just straight out lying. Like, I don't remember if I think it was one of the new Top Gun movies, which to their credit, they did a lot. They actually took the actors up in planes and, actually did the maneuvers so that it would look realistic. All of the way the G-forces would make their heads move and everything. But they went from that, and Tom Cruise went on the circuit, and the director kept saying this: there is no CGI in the movie. It's all practical. That was a lie.
Yep.
That was a flat out lie. The plane was CGI. The environment was CGI.
Oh yeah,
And you can see the VFX breakdowns online.
Yep.
You don't even need to do like that much, as far as research is concerned, and you'll find the VFX breakdown and all the, it's a combination of CGI and practical, which is how it's done. You don't really say, I'm going to use exclusively this tool or that tool. You use the tools you have in the combination that you think is best.
Oh yeah, my total favorite argument too that they always say is that AI steals images when it does not,
No.
Yeah. Again,
the training uses images, but that's not stealing.
Yep.
As long as you're just training on public images. You hack your way through a password and get someone's private images. That's another thing, but it's not what we're talking about.
I was having this conversation with some people. You know what I think we need to have? We need to have a Luddite award. like one of those mock awards like the Razzies or whatnot. And the winner gets a gold caveman.
Thoughts on AI Cook? Oh, that was terrible. That was absolutely terrible. Just because you can do good stuff with AI doesn't mean everything that's done with AI is good. That was terrible.
Yeah. Although, to play the devil's advocate here, and this is another thing too that I brought up, is like some people say it's like, yeah, an AI looks terrible and it's a detriment. It's like, well, here's the thing. You can screw up traditional animation too,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just look up the infamous Christmas special, The Christmas Tree. That special is infamous for its piss poor, and that's traditional hand-drawn animation, and it was absolutely atrocious, Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why you had a time in like the 2000s, early 2010s, when CGI started looking really good. And lately, everyone's talking about how sucky CGI is. That's just because, they overwork the VFX departments to death. They're constantly giving them last minute changes because the directors don't know what they want. They don't have a vision. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
They're just trying to get, and so here it is, like 3 or 4 weeks from premiere time. All of a sudden you have to change this one complete scene and redo it from scratch. And by the way, you don't get any more money and you can't hire any more personnel. Good luck.
Oh, yeah. Same thing happens in the video game industry.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's the reason why Mass Effect 3 had its infamous ending, because so many people were outraged by it, and one of the developers said, yeah, you want to know why the ending was so terrible and why Mass Effect 3 seemed to be a little inferior compared to its predecessors? Because literally the publisher was like, we want Mass Effect 3 to be this grand finale. We want it to have this, that, and have all this stuff and conclude with an epic beginning. Oh, and by the way, instead of the 3 years time, we want 2 years, and we're going to cut your budget.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, because we have the technology to make, those beautiful games. A lot of game developers and programmers have said that we have the technology to make these beautiful, epic games. The problem is that the developers and publishers keep saying we want to have this big, mega, awesome, kick-ass game. Oh, but we want to get it in time for Christmas, so you've only got 6 months to make it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like.
And then they keep handing him changes as they go, and.
Yep. Oh, yep. And then, you're in the middle of it. It's like, okay, we can do it with some crunch time. I'll have to skip some sleep, but we can do it. And then they come up and say, oh yeah, we also want it to have this super, this neat multiplayer idea. Can you put that in there? And it's like, well, it's going to take some time, and we're going to need more money. It's like, okay, we'll give you $50. It's like, no, I'm going to need more than that. I mean, not really. That's not what they say, but yeah, it's like they'll say it's like, okay, we'll increase your budget to $50,000, and I'm pretty sure anyone that works in the industry knows that's nowhere near enough. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And people forget it's not about the VFX or anything like that. It's about the gameplay. There are people who are still making games that are like those old, late 80s, early 90s, 8 and 16-bit graphic, side scroller type games or whatever, that people are playing and loving them because they have good gameplay.
Oh yeah,
It's all about the gameplay.
Yep.
That's why
And we
James
even see
Gunn
that.
is successful in having less reshoots, because he has visions and writes the ending down before shooting. Yep.
Mm.
Get your vision down on the page, and
Yep.
yeah, there are going to be changes made as you go, but
Mm.
when you're a few weeks from release time, you should not be doing any radical rewrites.
Oh, yep.
From what I
Fun
understand,
fact.
that was what happened with Solo, because the studio just kept demanding more and more rewrites because, oh no, we want to do that. Oh no, our marketing people say this. Oh no, now they changed their minds, do that.
Oh yeah. And you know what's and you know what? And this is something that many people have brought up before. And the biggest hilarity too is when Kathleen Kennedy tried to say, it's like, well, the reason why Star Wars isn't doing so well is because we're struggling. We're trying to continue the universe and write it all from scratch. And many people pointed out, it's like, yeah, you want to know why? Because you had 40 plus years of video games, books, comics, all this expanded lore that you could have focused on, and you declared it all non-canon and said we're going to do our own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were like, oh, that's going to limit us. Well, writing doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people like to hate on it, but a lot of people like to hate on it, and because yeah, there's like really cringy fanfic, but there's actually some really good fanfics out there, that really, some of which really make you kind of think like, huh, you know what? That's actually an interesting concept,
I think it would be probably do better if you turn Star Wars over to the fans instead of Disney, and just basically have the new Star Wars movies be fanfics.
I mean, didn't we kind of see that with Star Trek, where like some Star Trek fans made like a film, and while they weren't allowed to profit off of it, if they did allow them to air it at conventions, and when people saw it, everyone was like, wow, that short 20-minute independent film was better than the ones being released.
Yeah, Paramount came down hard on them. That was a big controversy, because
Yep.
you're not supposed to be able to own the idea of like a universe or a lore or whatever. You're only supposed to be able to copyright expressions. But when you got a major studio like Paramount coming down on your head,
Yep.
the rules don't matter that much.
And by the way, people, so many people are blaming, are wondering, why is Hollywood being so uncreative and all that? There's actually a very simple reason, but nobody wants to touch it because, unfortunately, it breaks everything we taught. It's simple. It's because of copyright laws. That's also the reason why Disney is
so crazy.
That's also why Disney is buying everything. Disney isn't buying everything because it's an evil empire that wants to own everything. It's doing it because that's literally the only way it can come up with new ideas. Back in the old days, what did Walt Disney do when he wanted to make a movie? He went to the public domain. He said, "Hey, look at all these fairy tales that are in the public domain, or these books that are in the public domain. Let's make movies off of those." But nowadays, copyright is so ridiculous; it's literally impossible to do it.
Yeah,
And some
if
people
it
like,
has to be, if you have to wait 70 years after the death of the author to
yep,
do something.
That's actually one thing I hate. That's actually one video by Razorfist that I strongly disagreed with was when he said, well, if the public domain fixes everything, how come nobody's made a Mask of Zorro film, even though that went into the public domain? And the reason is because of how complicated copyright works are. It's like, yeah, the original story is in the public domain, but you might, make your own. But you might make your own version based off of the original book, but Columbia Pictures might come out and say, "Hey, that's too similar to the Antonio Banderas movie we made. You can't make that." Yeah.
Yeah, and movie rights are like a whole weird other thing anyway.
Yep.
Because even if the Mask of Zorro, is public domain, if they still have the movie rights and the first movie is in public domain, you're still, it's all complicated. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Probably the most infamous case of how crazy copyright is look at King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah, James Rolfe was doing it. Yeah, James Rolfe, who also known as the Angry Video Game Nerd, was doing a movie marathon, and he was talking about King Kong, and he was talking about the copyright and all that, and he flat out said, "I have a lawyer," because believe it or not, a lot of YouTubers do have lawyers for copyright issues, and I contacted him and asked him, "Hey, who owns the rights to King Kong?" Guess what the lawyer said? It's complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the original screenplay, that's owned by Marion C. Cooper's family. That's owned by the Cooper estate. The film, I think, is owned by, I can't remember if it's owned by Warner or Columbia. The 1976 film is owned by the original one, as is the sequel. Well, and the legendary films are owned by Warner Brothers with permission from the company that owns King Kong. Like I said, it's complicated. And I really want to ask people who are pro copyright, how you can defend that.
So let's see, 1933. That means the film will become public domain in 28. I think that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a couple of years before the film becomes public domain.
Yeah, it's another thing that a lot of pro copyright / pro patent people don't want to acknowledge is the concept of patent / copyright trolling. Because here's the thing that many people fail to realize: the copyright and patent offices, they do not do their research to make sure you actually created it. It's literally a first come first serve.
Well, it's just a registry.
Yep.
That's all it is a registry.
Yep,
you see, here's your problem, because King Kong was released by RKO Radio Pictures. And what happened to RKO with how their assets were divided up and bought up? That is a whole complicated ball of wax.
Oh, yep. Yeah, that's even worse when a company. Yeah, that's even worse with copyright is when the original owner goes bankrupt and goes into liquidation, and then that's literally the reason why you see if I recall correctly, that's actually the reason why the Fantastic Four isn't considered a part of the Disney universe, and it's literally because the films were owned by 20th Century Fox as part of a deal with Marvel. So, but Disney didn't own them at the time.
Yeah, and Sony has Spider-Man. And so they couldn't make Spider-Man part of the MCU until Sony came on board with it.
Yep.
Which wasn't until after the big hack when all those emails got leaked and their dirty laundry got well and truly aired.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm looking right now at who's supposed to have RKO's assets right now, and there's not a plain answer for that.
Yep.
And you look at It's a Wonderful Life. That was at the time you had to re-register the copyright, and they didn't, and so it fell into the public domain in like the 60s. And so all these TV stations, these little UHF stations, picked it up for Christmas because it was cheap, because they didn't have to pay the royalties to show it. Then it became immensely popular. And so now you have everyone and his brother claiming a copyright on the sound recording, because sound recordings are a whole other different thing. You know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
music used in the different sections of it.
Yep, that's the reason why when you go on YouTube nowadays and you look at a scene, it's either completely silent or it's been replaced with music that makes no sense. The reason is because even if they have permission to air, even if they have permission, to paste the video, the music producer will say, "Hey, that music belongs to us."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, the RIAA is the worst, absolute worst when it comes to copyright abuse.
Yep. And yeah, going back to what I said earlier, you got to remember at the end of the day, patents and copyrights are literally just registries. They don't actually investigate. Let's say if I make so like let's say if I let's say if me and my friend are coming up, with I don't know, like a new type of cartoon character called Squeaky the Mouse, and now my friends now if my friend's the one who came up with pretty much all of the creative and aesthetics, and I just took it and I borrowed it and I took it to the copyright office and I show it to them and they say, "Oh, yep, we don't have a Squeaky the Mouse here, so it's yours," and all that. Congratulations, even though I didn't technically create him, I own him now and there's nothing my friend can do about it.
Well,
Because
technically your friend still owns the copyright. It's just a matter of proving it.
Yep.
But if he has
But
some sort of documentation that the court will accept that shows that he has it prior to your registration with the Copyright Office, that'll overrule it.
Yeah, but still, that rarely ever happens,
Yeah.
Yep, fun fact, that's what happened. That's what happened with Batman and Bob Crane, Yep, even though a pretty good even though most comic book historians know that it was actually Bill Finger that came up with most of them with the idea of what Batman would have become. Bob Crane gets sole credit for it because he listened to Bill Finger's ideas, and then he took it to DC and he said, "Oh, yep, it was all me. I came up with everything." Because
Yeah.
Bob Crane's original vision of Batman was nothing like the Batman we have now.
What was it?
Basically, it was basically a clone of Superman.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Whereas I guess going to DC, Detective Comics, that was how they made him into basically a detective.
Well, it was Bill Finger's idea to do that.
Oh, it was?
Yep. Yep, while it is true Bob Crane came up with the character of Batman, a lot of them, the visual aesthetics and characteristics of Batman, such as the fact that he was a dark cape crusader, he was a detective who relied on his detective skills and his martial arts training to fight bad guys rather than superpowers, that was all Bill Finger. And here's another little funny thing about Batman, the very first Batman comics. So many people say, "Hey, wait a minute, that's just a ripoff of
The Shadow.
of the Shadow." Well, guess what? It turns out the ghost artist who helped Bob Crane write it. He said it's like, yeah, because here's the thing. That's what it was. It was literally just a repainting of the Shadow, and the reason why we did that was because it was never meant to be for commercial. It was meant to be a proof of concept. When we took it to DC, it's going to be like, this is what our character is, and this is basically what he would be like. He would kind of be like the Shadow in the sense of that. But Bob Crane took it, went there, and said, "Yep, this is what I created. It's all mine." Yeah, Bob Crane, he did a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, and when he died, he had the audacity to not only claim he was the sole creator of Batman, but he said God and Jesus Christ was the co-creator of Batman. Yeah, not Bill Finger. going back to what we were talking about Christianity, that's one thing about Christianity that I don't understand is when they say it's like, oh no, we have to thank the Lord for the dinner on our plate. It's like, yeah, but God didn't harvest it, he didn't cook it.
Oh, it's God, what's the guy's name? Tim Hawkins. He's a Christian comedian. You might have seen him. He's the guy. He's also a libertarian. He's the guy who did the government can, based on the Candyman can.
Oh.
But he was talking about that. It's like, yeah, we're always praying for the Lord to make up for our bad decision making, right? It's like, dear Lord, for this meal I'm about to receive, use it to strengthen and nourish our bodies. Yes, Lord, take this big old bag of Doritos and this 32-ounce big gulp, this big old bottle of Dr. Pepper. Use it to strengthen and nourish our bodies. Don't know how you're going to pull this one off, Lord, but we believe in you. We know you got your work cut out for you this time.
I mean, you mentioned that. You mentioned that in your atheism versus libertarianism video, where it's like we always praise God for all the good things that happen because he's omnipotent and almighty and he's in control of everything, but we never seem to blame him when something bad happens. I think what your example was when a major football player, when he scores the final winning touchdown and wins the game for the team, he often says, "And I thank the Lord for blessing me with with fast legs and for being as good as football as I am." But you never see the rival quarterback say, "Hey, did you see that thing where God made me fumble?"
Yeah, I swiped that from George Carlin.
Yeah.
Steal from the best.
Yep. I'm pretty sure George Carlin wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
the losing team is never like, man, Jesus hates our team. He never lets us win.
Oh man, speaking of that, it reminds me of this really funny, because normally the Babylon Bee doesn't really do sports; they stick to politics. But they wrote a really funny article. I don't know how familiar you are with football lore, but it was the owner of the New York Jets decides, maybe football just isn't for us. Maybe we should do something else.
Well, and Monty Python did one, because there's a hymn called "All Things Bright and Beautiful," which is about all of the beautiful and wonderful things in the world that God made. And so Monty Python did a parody of that, "All Things Dull and Ugly." All the spiders, all the sharks, all the diseases and pox and everything. It's like, hey, if you're going to give God credit for all the beautiful things, don't you also have to, hang his hat on the bad things too?
Oh yeah, just like those nature people. They're like, "Oh, but it comes from nature, therefore it's good for you." It's like, yeah, and nature also produces arsenic, aconite, and various other poisons and diseases.
Anthrax is all natural and organic.
Yep. And I still don't understand why people say, "Oh yeah, we need to invest in wind and solar power because that's beautiful and natural," but not nuclear power. That's evil. That's evil sciencey stuff. Ignoring the fact that the sun itself is powered by nuclear fusion.
Yeah.
So doesn't that mean
the nuclear materials we use, like uranium, they were created by suns?
Yep. That kind of makes me wonder, if solar powered means it's powered by the sun, but the sun is basically a giant nuclear reaction, does that mean solar is a form of nuclear energy?
That would make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a hell of a lot closer to fusion than we can get.
Yeah, I mean, people, you fail to realize, literally everything in existence was created by nuclear fusion.
I would like to use StreamYards, but apparently they don't like me because somehow you're supposed to get a free trial from them, and I didn't even rate that. They're like, "No, your free trial is over." I'm like, "But I just signed up." So screw them. Not going to pay them if they don't give me the free trial.
Yep. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing that people don't get about pirating and all that. They're like, well, we're not gonna make money because if people pirate our stuff, they're not gonna buy the stuff. It's like, but they fail to realize most people who pirate something, they do it because of one or two reasons. Either A, they want to own it but they can't afford it, or B, it may not be their thing, but everyone says, "Oh, but you gotta try this game. It's really good." But they don't want to pay $60 for it, so they're like, "Okay, you know what? I'll check it. I'll check it out."
Or it's just not available in their area because of copyright.
Yep, that too.
See, this is the kind of thing they do to us. Like, they just announced season 21 of Doctor Who, Peter Davison's last season. And lots of great stuff they're doing. And the director of Warriors of the Deep is doing a re-edit on it, which can't possibly make it any worse. So we'll have to see how that is. But it's going to come out, I think, in March, April, somewhere in there. But America's probably not going to get it for another 9 months at least. And it's like, why do they do that? It's not like a movie where it's still in theaters and so they want to sell it in one place but not another. This aired 40 years ago.
It's just,
So I don't get why they do that. Just it's that old. Release it everywhere. Let us all buy it.
Mm. Yeah, it's like people. Franz Kafka's works were not instruction manuals.
And I mean, yeah, it would actually be trivial to buy it and have it shipped here and just hack through the region encoding. That's not difficult, people. But it's the principle of the thing.
Oh, yep. It's kind of like what happened with Glock, and why people criticize Glock because Glock basically complied with the gun control and they said, "Yep, we're gonna withdraw all our civilian Glocks and we're gonna replace them with a newer model that absolutely cannot be converted to fire fully automatic." And only a month or so after they announced that, some backyard gun skiffs broke it and figured out how to make it automatic. Yep.
Yeah, and now there's that big scare about what is it called? This thing you
That
supposed.
I know Ruger just released a pistol that's suffering the same problem.
Yeah, there's some sort of adapter for the Glock, and it's got a term for it. I forget what it's. Oh, and then the people who put a picture on a metal card, that's going through the appeal now. That you're supposed to be able to cut out and shove into an AR-15, and it makes it automatic. And even the ATF guy couldn't make it work without doing a whole bunch of extra stuff. And even then, it only worked because of a malfunction.
Yep. Which really only show. Yeah, that's another funny irony too that I find so funny. And this is something that Brendan Herrera brings up. It's like these guys are supposed to be experts in firearms and they know what they're doing. Yet many of them. Yet I think there was that one ATF director under Biden who couldn't even disassemble a Glock properly.
Well, and this was like the guy he had to cut outside of the lines and then file this other thing, put this extra thing in. And it was only technically a machine gun then because it created a malfunction where sometimes after you fire it, it would automatically fire just the next round after loading it in. And on cross-examination, the guy asked him, well, couldn't you do the same thing just by removing this other part? And the ATF guy was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not even, automatic fire. It's just a malfunction that makes it fire more than one shot, which technically means it's automatic.
By the way, Shane, it's one really dumb post I saw on YouTube one time. I don't know why, but I'm getting these posts from like left wingers and all that. One person said was like, you know what I don't get? How come when Gavin Newsom use exercises his political power, he's dubbed unconstitutional, but when Trump does it, he's praised as a hero. And I don't know if anyone pointed out, it's like, because here's the thing, the stuff that Trump's doing, you may disagree with it, but it is, strictly speaking, it's constitutional because it falls within the executive branch. What Gavin Newsom is doing is basically he's declaring himself as governor to be superior to the executive branch of the United States, and it was well established after the U.S. Civil War, a state governor can't do that.
Well, that's the basic supremacy clause of the Constitution.
Yep. Yeah, it's a little thing called the supremacy clause, people. Like, that seems to be something that people fail to realize. Like, the Constitution of the United States does not grant you your rights and freedoms. It literally is just instruction manuals for what the government on both the state, federal, and local level can and cannot do.
And they set up a pretty precarious balancing act with the separation of powers. And the more you mess with that, the worse things get.
Oh yeah, I remember reading, Dick Cheney was getting all this heat because he made a comment saying that the president should have 100% power, and people say, oh, Dick Cheney wants to be a dictator. Then people looked into it and they found out, yeah, he wanted the president to have absolute power within the executive branch, which is absolutely constitutional because he's the head of the executive branch, and if the power he wants to implement falls under the executive branch's jurisdiction, he should have every authority to do so. He's
not the head of the executive branch. He is the executive branch.
Yep.
That's what the Constitution says.
If you pass an arbitrary law that says, well, the president can't do this unless someone else says so, you're basically breaking the Constitution, because that's the whole point, Yeah, it's just like, I think you brought this up. It's just like those people, that talk about, about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and they're like, oh, Roe v. Wade happened because right wingers took over the SCOTUS. No, they overturned it because here's the thing that people fail to realize is that because Roe v. Wade violated the 10th Amendment. Because the determination of abortion and all that appears nowhere in the preamble of the original Constitution, and it clearly states in the 10th Amendment, if it's not listed there, it falls under the states or the people.
Well, and also they were trying to put rules to the states on how they should legislate, which A, they're the feds, not the state, and B, they're the judicial, not the legislative.
Yeah.
And Casey might well have survived if they hadn't hitched their wagon so hard to Roe v. Wade, and they had said this is a separate decision that has nothing to do with Roe v. Wade. Casey might well have survived.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, people, if you want the United States to be pro or anti-abortion regardless, on a federal level, it has to be done through the process of amendment, and that can only be done only if the states, take a stance on it, Like, that's literally what Roe v. Wade said. It didn't say abortion is illegal now. It just said it's up to the states to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, of course, means states are doing stupid things with it.
Yep. That's why if you read the Constitution, you start to realize pretty much every single gun law in existence is unconstitutional.
Oh yeah.
Because like, so many people, say it's like, well, it doesn't violate the Constitution because it doesn't ban the gun. It just says you have to go through some hoops. It's like, the Second Amendment does not say the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall be prohibited or banned. It says infringed. And people fail to realize infringed doesn't just mean ban. It just means to have like a legal barrier put in place.
If you have to stand on one foot for 5 seconds to buy a gun, that's an infringement.
Yep, exactly. That's why in my opinion, I think one issue with a lot of Second Amendment people is that they're trying to target these individual laws, and I understand what they're trying to go to, but I think if they really want to end all this reckless gun control law, they need to attack the original 1934 for National Firearms Act, because if that act gets successfully repealed, pretty much every single gun law is going to fall apart, because that's literally the standard that the SCOTUS and many local state governments use to justify their gun control law. It's like, well, the 1934 NFA was declared okay, so therefore our gun laws are justifiable. But now that it's gone, they can't use that. It's like, well, there was the 1968 Act, yeah, but that only happened because they said the 1934 Act was okay, but that's been declared unconstitutional. So now the gun laws don't have a leg to stand. The gun control laws don't have a leg to stand on.
Here's a funny headline from PC Mag. Over 21% of YouTube is now AI slop, says report. And of course, my response to that is, yeah, and most of the remaining 79% is human slop.
Yep.
I mean, I wonder how many people would consider Brother Ezekiel to be AI slop.
Yeah.
Because
I must admit, I don't know.
really, the production on that isn't that dissimilar. It's done with Grok Imagine, but I do like a few takes of like each line because I can do up to 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So I write it, and then I've still got a few to do I've got one coming up for New Year's. But then I get all those together. Then I edit it together as normally and put it together and put it up. The only difference is instead of, pointing a camera at someone and making the takes, I'm having Grok Imagine do the takes. That's the only difference.
So I mean, I don't know I can't recall how Grok works, but I mean, you're still like talking, and recording the lines, but the AI changes it and all that. But you're still
in this case, I give it some stuff in brackets like British accent and outrage and stuff like that, and then I give it the line in text. And then sometimes it does a good job with it. I mean, there's been a lot of times just the first one it generates has been perfect. And then there are others I've had to do a few times or had to completely rewrite just because Grok couldn't imagine. Like for the Christmas one, I wanted to do one where he's holding a fruitcake and he says, "Why must a cake have the weight of a fatted calf?" and then drops it on his foot. Grok could not do the dropping on the foot. Just all of the things. It was, oh my God. There was some hilarious stuff there, but never actually dropping it on his foot.
Yeah, a lot of people like to make fun of AI for being really bad with hands, but from what I've heard and like actual artists have confirmed this, hands, legs, and all that, they are actually some of the hardest parts to draw.
Yep, the hands and the face are the hardest parts. And that's what gave all those early AIs the hardest part too. And when you do draw a face, you basically get to where you can draw a face in a neutral expression, but then, trying to get it to be actually expressive and then look like an actual human doing the expressing is a separate skill. And that's kind of where AI is now. You've got that kind of that blank stare or the kind of fake model smile or something, just because that's kind of the global average of all of the faces that it's seen. And it's tricky to get it to actually have an expression that an actual human would do.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason why a lot of especially early animations, up until modern times, a lot of cartoons and all that. That's the reason why the characters had gloved hands, only 4 fingers, and 4 fingers. They didn't have lips, and why they often seem to be looking like as if they were positioning their faces looking off to the side. It's because if they stared at you directly forward, it would be difficult to actually add depth perception to them, and it would just look like a logo. It wouldn't look like a living being.
It's a lot easier to do the profile or the 3/4 than to head on. And the best example of that is Leela from Futurama. The times they tried to draw her like head on did not work out that well.
Yep.
Oh, let's see what Zen's saying. Oh, the Ford Hood cover up. Commodore is back with a new C64. Abortion bans and gun control will always fail, just like just like drug prohibition. Brother Ezekiel was funny, thank you. And I'm kind of thinking ahead for a Valentine's Day one too.
Yeah.
I'd like to take what novel AI did and fix what it got wrong in another program. Well, that's interesting. What are you thinking there? Let us know what you wanted to do. All right, so has the YouTube chat frozen, or is it just not being? Let me reload it.
I don't know. I
Okay,
just don't
yeah,
think people have been.
it's just kind of dead. Okay.
Yeah.
There should be an easier way than Discord, though.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about. I don't know about. I don't know what the Puritans were, but here's a funny thing about Jehovah's Witness and holidays. You know, it's the one holiday they are technically religiously allowed to celebrate. It's literally the day Jesus died, and no, not Easter. It's basically Good Friday. They call it the memorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no joke. I saw a comedy one time by like an ex-Jehovah's Witness one time and all that, and when the Jehovah's Witnesses were explaining, the policy and the strict holidays and all that, the person who was answering them is like, "So you guys are basically a Christianized death cult?"
Well, Christianity pretty much is a death cult if you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's no wonder. I mean, it's no wonder why some extremely fringe, cults, that branched off from Christianity ended up, ended up mass self-terminating because if all you're focusing on is how life is terrible and it's only through God's will in paradise, it would be tempting for some people who are not well in the head to think, well, if everything is so terrible and the whole point is to die and go to heaven, why even bother living?
Oh, I used it for character design ideas. Yeah, people have tried either fine-tuning an AI or coming up with a system prompt to do character designs, and it turns out it's just easier to do the thing yourself. Let me show you what he said. Yeah, use it for character design ideas.
I mean, that's another thing AI is used for, because Tim Dyson, he's my dungeon master. He uses AI for creating character, sprites and all that for the virtual board games we have,
Well, people are talking about, well, we're gonna ban you if you use AI. How do you think they have been doing NPCs in games for 30 friggin' years?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So you're telling me that those NPCs, are actually being played by people who they hire to play the game 24 hours. So when a player comes by, yeah.
Yeah. Or replays that someone recorded or whatever.
Yeah. Or they try. But of course, they also try to say, well, that's different.
Yeah, it's just different. Well, it's not AI I have a problem with, but generative AI. Okay, tell me what you think the difference is.
Yep. It's no different. It's no different than the communists, saying it's like, well, communism isn't necessarily against property, but we think that property should be owned by the workers and the people who make it. Okay, so a manager doesn't own the factory then?
This is the point that
Yeah.
Ross Intelligence was making, and I think I have this video going public tomorrow, but it's been up for the supporters. But their thing is like, because the judge was saying, okay, this isn't a generative AI, but so the rules are different, but it made a big deal about that. And Ross is saying in their appeal, like, it doesn't matter if it's generative AI or not. It's the same thing. There is no real technical distinction between a generative AI and another sort of AI.
Yeah. Actually, scratch what I said earlier. A classic example of what it's like what communists say with property. It's like property is stuff and no one should own it. Okay, so can I come over and take your computer? Well, no, that's personal property. What's the
Yep.
difference?
Personal property versus private property. Yeah, same kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
They don't know how AI
Yep.
works. They don't understand how it's trained. They don't.
Yep. It's kind of like the whole art debate. It's like, well, it doesn't count because there's no creative process behind it. Well, yes, there is. Like literally everything people say about what you can do with AI, you can also do with a paintbrush. You can copy and plagiarize people. That if you're good, you can do it. Of course, then they go, yeah, but that still takes some degree of artistic skill. It's like, but it's still not creative because you're not creating anything new. You're just copying. Like if you make a perfect copy of the Mona Lisa, like it's not technically creative.
Minions are incredibly easy to draw. Try it sometime.
Yeah.
That was a big thing they were doing in the Disney thing. They made all these minions. It's like, okay, you can do that with a paintbrush and it's easy. You can do it with a pencil.
Yep.
Minions are just really simple shapes put together a certain way.
Yep. Also, you know what else? And this is actually another thing that people don't want to, and this kind of goes back to copyright that people don't want to talk about. I forgot what the term is, but it's also absolutely possible for two people to literally come up with the exact same concept idea. There are some slight differences, but the core principle, philosophy, and concept is the exact same, but they have nothing to do with each other. Is there like a term for that, or I don't remember.
A term for what now?
For when two people come up with more or less the exact same idea for a concept, like a story concept. Now granted there could be some minor differences, but the core concept is the exact same, yet they've never met and they had nothing to do with each other. Like I think a perfectly good example are dragons. Both the Europeans, the ancient South American tribes, and the Chinese had concepts of dragons long before either of them met each other.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a term for that, but it happens a lot more than you might think.
Yep.
Two people make essentially the same movie at the same time and try to release it. Oh, like one example is Ants and A Bug's Life.
Oh yeah.
And everyone thinks that A Bug's Life was taken from Ants, but Pixar actually had the outline for A Bug's Life before they made Toy Story.
Oh yeah.
Toy Story was just easier to make, so they did that first.
Yep. I think it's just one of those things where, like, it's kind of like what happens when you don't apply to Arkham's Razor. Like, when you really break it down and think about it, people always talk about how it's like, but they're so similar. How could they not be copyrighting each other? It's like, well, when you actually take a look, sit down and think about it, the story and concept of Ants and A Bug's Life is actually not that difficult to come up with. I mean, it's literally about. I mean, the core story of A Bug's Life and Ants is the main character belongs to a collective society, but he doesn't feel like he's a part of it, and he just wants to do something different.
Yeah.
We've seen that long before and many other times. The only difference is that instead of like a guy, it's an insect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of easy to do that with an ant colony because people have the perception that they're like this
Yeah.
this like, socialist collective, which they're not actually. That's not how ants work, but
Yeah.
metaphorically it's easy to do that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing that many people fail to realize. The queen ant or the queen bee, you know what's special and unique about them compared to to the rest of the hive? They're fertile. That's it.
Yeah, they're egg sacs.
Yep.
They're not like issuing telepathic commands on everyone from the center. No, they're big egg sacs.
Yeah. Yeah, contrary to popular belief, ants and bees don't have a collective high mind. They do show a sense of individuality. Hell, some beekeepers have actually explained to this, like bees, some bee colonies, they'll even have civil wars if multiple queens are born and they mature at the same time. There actually are known to have some bee hives are known to have civil wars, with some hive supporting one queen and the other hive supporting another one. It happens.
Yeah, they're acting as individuals and it's spontaneous order.
Yep. Yeah, that's another thing too. That's also another thing I kind of hate. I kind of hate too when some socialists try to say, "Well, socialism works all the time." I mean, look at sports team. They're a group that come together and work together for the greater good. It's like, yeah, but sports teams for the most part are bottom up. And I mean, you've mentioned this before. There's been plenty of famous cases where there's been plenty of famous cases where sports teams have won not because they had good leadership, but because their head coach literally told them, listen, you guys have been training, just do what you think is good. Whereas the coaches that try to micromanage the team end up making the most mistakes.
Yeah,
I
because
think
that
you
nice
mentioned that
little
one.
plan you came up with, well, the other team is allowed to plan too. The other team is allowed to react to what you're
Yep.
doing.
Yeah. I think you mentioned that one time that the high school you went to, the one time when your football team won a game was because the main coach was out and they had a substitute, and the substitute was more or less saying, "Listen, you guys got this. Just do what you think is good. That's going to win us the game."
Yep.
Yep. Like, I mean, I'm not saying coaches are useless. They have their importance, but many people have pointed out coaches work best, off the game. Like during training. They're good for training and planning, but like once the actual game starts, they have to be able to have that ability to say, "Listen, I can't predict that. Stuff's gonna happen. There's stuff that I can't account for. When that happens, just trust your guys' instincts and your training, and do what you think will make us win."
Oh my God, there was another Waymo shutdown? Jeez.
Waymo, what's that?
Waymo is the driverless cars that Google has, and they have them in San Francisco and LA and Phoenix, and I think a couple other cities. And during the San Francisco blackout, all of the Waymos just stopped right where they were
Oh, yeah.
and blocked up traffic and everything. And so now apparently it's happened again.
Mm. Well, as you pointed out, that's the problem that happens when your power grid is centrally planned, and you're saying all single electronics must have it at a very at a well at one individual area.
Yeah, but I mean, the issue is these things are driving on batteries. So,
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, they're also relying on like the cell network and things like that. But, the people who had Teslas that were on full self driving, they were still working fine. So it's not an autonomous driving thing. It's just
Yeah.
it's all of a sudden everything was dark and the Waymo couldn't handle it because the cameras tell them one thing, the LiDARs tell them another. And that's the problem. When you just have vision like Teslas do, you don't have that kind of, sensor fusion that can cause your AI to crap out.
Yeah.
That's why it can be better to have one thing that you do well instead of trying to mix things that can get you contradictory information.
Yeah.
There was an Aesop fable to that, and I think it was a cat and a wolf or something like that, maybe. And the wolf was boasting that he had all sorts of ways to, evade an attacker. the cat says, I only have one way, but it works well. And then I forget what it was, a lion or whatever, comes down and attack him. And then so the cat, of course, just goes straight up the tree, and the wolf stops and thinks, wait, do I run? Do I fight? Do I climb? Do I dig? And spend so long thinking about it that the predator catches up with him and kills him.
Yep.
One video showed 5 Waymos stuck at the same intersection. Frightened animals have a fight or flight response. Waymos have a stand dumbfoundedly in place response. That's a good one. This is on futurism.com.
I'm back. Sorry, my phone went off. It was nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I was lazy today. I slept in most of the day because my I don't know if I've got a peptic ulcer or something, but I was having a really bad stomach cramp, and holy crap, it kept me up all night. I literally did not fall asleep until 5 a.m.
Wow. I had a really bad thing the other day. Except it was actually
Oh, what was wrong?
Christmas. And I don't know if it was how I laid or what, but this one part of my right arm, right at the on the outside part of it, and it's still a little tender. It was stiff. It was like completely locked up, and it felt like someone was stabbing me. And I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning and couldn't get back to sleep. And that thing hurt all day, and I had to sleep on my left side that night. And I felt a little better the next morning, but
Yeah.
yeah. It's still a little tender. I don't know what I did to it.
Yep. Ugh. Yeah, part of me wonders if maybe that's the reason why I had that Doctor Who dream, was because my stomach was killing me.
Who knows?
Because I don't, because I don't know why, but it is true what they say. Like when you're sick, you have some very weird dreams.
Yeah, like fever dreams are the worst.
Yeah. Like, I know we brought it up before, but part of me wonders if some of those Bible stories were literally written by someone that just had a really bad fever dream.
Well, that's what some people think Revelations was. He was sampling a little too many of the local mushrooms.
Yep.
Because those kind of mushrooms do grow there.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's like it's always funny when you hear about like certain religious sects and all that, because like there's some subsects of like all those religious subsects that came out in the 19th century, and it's like, oh, this person claimed they discovered a new translation of the Bible. When did that happen? Well, he first became enlightened to these new teachings from the Bible after he had a seizure.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, are you sure it was totally a vision from God and not the seizure? You know. Because like any doctor, like anyone who's a doctor or has friends or family that has epilepsy can tell you, it's very common that when a person wakes up from a seizure, and you ask them, like, oh, Shane, are you okay? You're gonna respond, oh, that polar bear really hit me hard with that tomato. because you're confused. Your brain's confused. It's resetting. When it thinks something weird's happening.
Did you get the license number on that freight truck?
Yep. My favorite was I was watching this guy called Fire Department Chronicles, and he's a one-man act about a firefighter in Florida who recreates stuff he actually saw. And my favorite was when he was responding to a seizure call, and the guy was like, okay, how are you feeling, sir? Or it's like, okay, it's okay. My birthday is December 49th, 1812. I'm a pirate. Yeah, and people were like, "Is that real? Did he really say he was a pirate?" It's like, "Yep, it happens. When you're having a seizure, Yeah, like no joke. I've seen some, fire departments and EMTs. They say they come up with a long list of them. They come up with a long list of crazy stuff people have said. After they recovered from a seizure before. It's morbid, but some of them are pretty funny. Can you hear me, Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling to see if there's anything interesting to talk about.
Yep. Yep.
There's one thing about all the headlines to these AI stories that absolutely none of these people understand AI. It's just weird stuff.
Mm. Mm. It's even funny how some people are calling for what they call a John Connor protocol to stop AI, and I'm just like, yeah, you people clearly didn't actually pay attention to what happened in Terminator.
Well, and everyone's talking about like, oh, ChatGPT, or no, they're going to become sentient. They're doing it. It's like people. They're a computer function. You
Yeah.
give them
Yeah.
input, they turn away on it, they produce output, then they stop and wait for more input.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
That's what they do. They're a
that's
little more sophisticated at that, but that's it. That's what they do.
okay. Just a second.
All right. After outcry, Firefox promises kill switch that turns off all AI features. I mean, see, the thing is, Firefox gets so much money, like incredible amounts of money for an open source project, and they spend like less than 3% of it on the actual browser. So, I mean, that is like huge mismanagement. I think in any other industry, that would probably get the SEC on them, but Americans hate AI. Which party will benefit? And oh, look, there's a picture of Bernie accompanying the story. Yeah, because I'm really anxious to hear what Bernie has to say about AI. And more fear mongering about NVIDIA, of course. Britain pushed ahead with green power, its grid can't handle it. And that's all the Wall Street Journal. That's kind of surprising. They're posting something like that on the Wall Street Journal. Oh, and of course, I can't read it because it's paywalled. But the electricity grids can handle it, yeah. Because you can't keep them in sync. You need to sync them with the power. You get a giant turbine, big spinny thing spinning fast, and you can sync it up. because like in Britain, they do it, 50 times a second. Here it's 60 times a second, but it's the same thing. You've got to keep it not only going at that rate, but in phase with the power.
I'm back. Sorry, Shane. My mom called me. Dinner's ready, but
All right. I was just looking
what
at
were
a
we
Wall
talking about?
Street Journal headline in like the first paragraph of the story where it's talking about Britain putting a lot into solar and wind and then figuring out that the grid can't take it.
Mm.
And I was talking about how, unless you have a turbine that you can sync up with the grid, that's going to be a problem. Spain just figured that out,
Yep.
where you have your big generator, and a generator is a reverse motor. So before you do anything else, you actually start using grid power to start up the generator and get it going to full speed. So then it will actually be in sync with the grid, and then your turbine connects to that. And so then you start putting your power onto the turbine. Like if it's a steam turbine, like at a nuclear power facility, they would actually be spinning it at half the rate because they use 4-pole generators. So then that would be, spinning 30 times a second instead of 60. Or, well, this is Britain, so 25 instead of 50. But anyway, then you start ramping up your power, and then you're using more and more of the steam power to keep the generator and the turbine going at that speed, and you're using less and less of the grid power. At some point, when you get your power ramped up enough, it's going to flip over. The motor becomes a generator, and you're going the other way, and now you're putting power onto the grid. And that makes everything incredibly stable.
Mm.
So you're not like fighting with the grid. Everything is in sync with it. Everything is in phase with it. And solar and wind don't work that way. They use inverters, and inverters don't do that.
Yeah.
And so you need inverters that are going to be able to basically read the phase of the network and then get in sync with it. But if too much of your grid is solar and wind, then it can't figure out what the phase is supposed to be. And you end up causing problems.
Yeah. Isn't that what happened in Texas?
I'm not sure what happened in Texas, but that's what happened in Spain.
Hmm.
It's exactly what happened in Spain. There was a power interruption for like 2 seconds. When everything started back up, all of the power and wind turbines went through their inverters trying to put power onto the grid. They weren't in sync, took the whole grid down for many hours.
Oh yeah, I think
I don't know if
remember
it was
hearing about
quite a
that.
day,
Yeah.
but it was a long time. Funnily enough, France isn't having those issues.
Yeah, because for all their flaws, they did make one decision that is much superior to what other nations did. Is that they kept their nuclear power plants.
Yep. They didn't build more of them when they should have, but at least they didn't shut down the ones they had.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, Axios is complaining that AI is racist.
Yeah, how can it be racist?
They're influencing political discourse. Oh, of course, because they're not running in lockstep with the far left.
Yep. Yeah, speaking of AI, I remember that story about how when they tried to make when they tried to make AI self-censor themselves, and the unintended consequences of that is that people with severe mental health emergencies couldn't get the help they needed because they would say chatbot, I'm feeling really, really suicidal, what should I do? And it would say, oh, I can't say that word, so I can't help you.
Oh, and now Slate's going on something about like that four-pointed star that Google's AI uses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look see what they're saying about that.
Sorry if I'm a little quiet, I'm eating, so.
Oh, apparently this guy thinks it's magic. The kind that splits your soul into a bunch of little pieces. Okay, so Slate has published an article from someone who believes that magic is real and AI is
Yeah.
invoking it.
Sounds like Brother Ezekiel.
I don't even think he would be this crazy.
Yeah. 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 We seriously, maybe you should do maybe you should do Brother Ezekiel for other like famous religious controversies like the Harry Potter thing.
I don't know. At least for now, he just seems to be more of a holiday
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
ruining your holidays.
Huh. Maybe you should do Easter then.
Oh, I'm sure I'll do Easter.
Yeah. Yeah, because what is hunting? Hunting for plastic eggs filled with candy have to do with the glorious miracle of Jesus' resurrection? Yeah, celebrating the resurrection of Jesus must be done only one way, by going to church and whipping yourself in the back and saying, "It's my fault Jesus died."
And then, of course, there's all the sexual metaphors behind the imagery, like
Yep.
the eggs and the rabbits and all that.
Yeah. Mm.
The Guardian,
You
could
wanna know?
AI relationships actually be good for us? Lawmakers sound the alarm on AI's impact on children. Oh, you knew it was going to happen. Someone think of the children.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh my God! It's CP. Keep it away. Keep it away. It's just a drawing.
Financial Times, why your AI companion is not your friend. What? New York Times, she fell in love with ChatGPT, then she ghosted it. It's like, what the hell?
Yep.
ChatGPT doesn't notice when you stop talking to it. It's not like they're running the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ask it
ChatGPT.
something,
Yeah.
it runs for a bit, then it stops and waits. It's not actually
Yeah.
running. It's waiting
Yeah.
for
It's not gonna.
input.
Yeah. It's not gonna. It's not gonna say you haven't talked to me. Why aren't we talking? Are we through? Baby, you gotta talk to me right now. I know where you live.
Bloomberg, what happens when we insist on optimizing fun? Yeah, Zen says, I bet Brother Ezekiel would lose his shit at Mardi Gras. Yeah. I don't know that much about Mardi Gras, so that one might have to wait a while. I don't even know when it is. Chatbots are preying on the vulnerable, Washington Post. All right, it's 8 o'clock already. I didn't realize how much time was going fast. I was having too much fun. The Indy Mayan parade is around the same time as Valentine's Day. Don't know if that's the case. All right, whichever. Chris, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was going to the bathroom.
Yeah, we gotta close off. So if you got any parting thoughts,
nah, I don't. So,
all right. Well, thanks for joining me. Sorry, Fun with Facts couldn't make it.
yeah, what happened? He said he was going to show up.
I don't know, and I'm sorry Tia had a bad throat and couldn't join us too. But we did have our usual people in the chats to keep us going, and then of course the nonstop idiocy of the news media. So thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, stay strong.